Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another Friday Reads. I didn't film anything last week. You all were in deep distress, I know. But if you follow my channel, you know that I'm regularly visiting my almost 91-year-old mother and stay there for a week to help her, with stuff, and then I don't film. So it will happen regularly. Yeah. So don't be in too much distress. I know you are not. I'm kidding. Anyway, so Friday Reads, first starting with the books that I finished since the last Friday Reads. And maybe you know that there was this mystery readathon, mid-year mystery madness. I follow March Mystery Madness, of course, but I didn't know about Mid-Year Mystery Madness until I saw a video by Jen from Remembered Reads, whose channel I will leave a link to her channel down below. And then I thought, yeah, I haven't read many mysteries, so why not, join? And the theme for this September Mystery Madness was a subgenre September. In other words, pick a book from a certain subgenre and read that. And I chose the subgenre that I really read a lot when I was 10 years younger or something, and that is the legal thriller. So I define that quite broadly and loosely. If the main character, the sleuth, the detective, the one who is investigating, or just the main character in a thriller, in a mystery, is a lawyer, then I call it a legal thriller. So it's not necessarily a courtroom drama. Anyway, definitions. And the first book I read was Attica Locke's Blackwater Rising, the first book in her J Porter series, I think. J Porter is his name. Published in 2009. I really like Attica Locke's work, and I wanted to read some of her backlist, and this was her debut novel. Attica Locke, of course, is a Black American writer from Texas, and a lot of her books are set in Texas. And this one, Blackwater Rising, no exception. It's set in Texas in 1981, and the main character, the sleuth, if you will, is a lawyer called Jay Porter, who is, well, he is an ambulance chaser. he does torts law, so he sues if you are injured after an accident, or if you slipped on the road, that kind of stuff. But he is not really successful. He has a pregnant wife, and the book opens when Jay kind of has a birthday surprise for her. He booked a cruise in the bay where they live, and it turned out, the ship is more like a wrecked ship. But anyway, and then they hear a scream, and they rescue a woman, and everything takes off from there. I quite liked it. I mean, it was well done. It was fast paced, and you could see already Attica Locke's talent, but it wasn't that phenomenal, I felt, even for a debut, because it was very formalistic. This idea of a thriller that you have these various strands that seemingly have nothing to do with each other, but they will all come together in the end. I was entertained. But it wasn't fantastic. And the second legal thriller that I read was by politician Stacey Abrams, While Justice Sleeps, published earlier this year. And again, it was well done. It was fast paced. But if you read a lot of thrillers, oftentimes what happens is when they follow certain formulas or certain structure, you already know what what will happen. But anyway, so this one is centering around a justice of the Supreme Court who falls into a coma and who has a power of attorney to his young clerk. And so the clerk is the central figure trying to find out what happened to the justice, why he is in a coma. And again, plot ensues from there. Like with the first one, Attica Locke, I mean, Stacey Abrams, it's her debut as a thriller writer. She writes steamy romance under a pen name. And this one was good. It especially the politics around the Supreme Court and, the relationship between the Supreme Court and politicians, especially the White House. That was really well done. I liked the plot idea, the premise behind the plot. My only qualm was, like I said, that I sort of saw it coming from quite a mile away. But yeah, that happens a lot if you if you have read many thrillers and they follow a certain, a certain structure. Then that will happen to you. But I still enjoyed it, and I was happy to participate in mid-year Mystery Madness. And thank you, Jen, for alerting me to this readathon. The next book I want to talk to you about is a bit of a cheat in the sense that I finished it already in August, but for some reason I never talked about it, and I thought that's a shame because it's a good book, and that is this memoir, Come on Shore and We Will Kill and Eat You All by Christina Thompson, published in 2009. I love the title. I mean, how can you not pick up a book with this title? Anyway, if you follow my channel, you will remember that I absolutely adored Christina Thompson's nonfiction book about Polynesia, Sea People, which she published a couple of years back, and I read earlier this year. Christina Thompson was born in the US, but she lived in Australia and New Zealand for quite a while, and she met and married a Maori man, and this is more of a memoir about her travels to New Zealand, but also the encounters with the Maori culture, her husband, her future husband in particular, but his family. And in the course of them, living together, getting married, having children, and moving around a lot. In the end, they moved to the US and lived there. She also incorporates encounters between Europeans and Polynesian, especially New Zealand people in the past. So it is kind of a predecessor in a way to Sea People, because it addresses the same issue, the European encounters, the Europeans coming to Polynesia. And I say Europeans, but I mean, she's American, but the Western people coming to Polynesia, I should rather say. But it's more focusing on her personal story. And I really, really enjoyed it. I thought she can write well. I liked the way she combined her personal story with the history of her husband's peoples, I should say, and the history of New Zealand without making it like a school project. So it read really engagingly and really well. So if you're interested in that combination, Polynesian history a little bit, but also the private memoir about an American woman living in New Zealand for a while, meeting somebody, and how that all develops, I can certainly recommend this book. I don't bloody believe it. Steve, you're not the only one with obnoxious neighbors, I can tell you. There was nothing all week. And the minute I start filming, they start drilling. Thankfully, this time it's on the other side of the house, so I don't think you will hear it, but it annoys me. Anyway, from the books that I mentioned in my last Friday Reads that I started, I'm still reading Deborah Levy's Real Estate, the third book in her working autobiography. I'm about, not a little bit more than a third, and I really, really enjoy it. But it's one of those books that I like to read slowly because there's so much thought in the books that I'm thinking about, and then I write stuff down. So it will take me a while until I have finished this book. I'm also still doing the buddy reads that I mentioned in that earlier video, the buddy read with Sean, short story collection, the buddy read with the Elliott group, Romola. So I'm not going to repeat all that. I'm not even going to show covers because it's not very interesting. We're just going on reading. What I want to do is the books that I started this week. And the first book that I started, I'm almost finished, is another nonfiction book in my quest for, feminist literature. And that is Elizabeth Lesser, Cassandra Speaks, which was published last year. And I missed it completely last year. I didn't even know about it. I'm not an Elizabeth Lesser fan. She is in her 60s now, and she founded this organization called Omega, where you mindfulness and spirituality and stuff. And it's not really my thing. Let's put it like that. So she's not an author that I normally gravitate towards. But when I saw her book, the 2020 book on script by accident, Cassandra Speaks, I immediately thought that might be something. In the book, she explores stories from the past, like in mythology, like Cassandra, like Pandora, that we tell each other, that are a part of our cultural understanding in the West, and ask the question, what stories are we not telling? The stories from the female perspective. And she explores power in particular, a concept that I'm really interested in, about how can you approach power differently if you want to have women in power. So I'm really enjoying it. Some parts are for me a little bit too, gooey, new agey, but I just, read over them. But the main theme of the book really, really speaks to me. So I'm happy about that. The next book I started this week, was it last week? Well, the week that is still ongoing, I guess it's this week, is a buddy read with Heidi from My Reading Life. And we are reading an essay collection, Grieving, by Cristina Rivera Garza, translated from the Spanish by Sarah Booker. The original Spanish edition was published in 2011, and this one was published last year. I think that's correct, but as you know me, I'm always check. Yes, it's correct. I should trust myself. Garza is a Mexican author, and Heidi and I are reading this for Hispanic Heritage Month or Latinx Heritage Month. I talked to Roxanne from the novel Sanctuary to explain to me what is the better term, Hispanic Heritage Month or Latinx Heritage Month. She uses Latinx because it doesn't refer to the colonial past like Hispanic does. So I think I will use Latinx as well. But last time I used Hispanic Heritage Month, and there were some people, Latinos, who complimented me for not using Latinx. So I guess you can only do it the wrong way. But I trust Roxanne. So we are reading this for Latinx Heritage Month. Like I said, it's a collection of essays about violence in Mexico. And they are... we are all over halfway through, and I had a bit of a hard time getting into the essays because I expected something different, which is not the book's fault, of course. I expected a more journalistic approach because Garza is, a writer, and she writes about Mexico, but she also writes fiction, by the way. So I expected more kind of a journalistic pieces with facts and figures and evidence, and it's much more, Doris, beware, it's much more philosophical. Asking the main premise of many of the essays that we read so far is the relationship between the individual body and the state when it comes to violence that the state doesn't do anything about. They're really good, but different than I thought. So it took me a little bit, but they're certainly worthwhile. And I think we will finish probably still in September next week. Yes, I guess. And the last book I want to talk to you about, the book that I just started, is also Buddy Read with Adam from Memento Mori. And as always, I will leave his Instagram, a link to his Instagram account below. And that's a short story collection, Catherine Ann Porter, Pale Horse, Pale Rider. Catherine Ann Porter is one of my all-time favorite authors. I love her 1962 novel, Ship of Fools. She was a journalist, an essayist. She wrote novels, fiction, a lot of short fiction, born in 1890, and she died in the early 20th century. I forgot the date of her death. Shall I look that up? Maybe 1980. So it was not the early 20th century. It was 1980. And she was a Pulitzer Prize winner for her short story. She won the National Book Award. And for some reason, nobody talks about her anymore, neither on BookTube nor anywhere else. And I think she is a fantastic writer. And I've been meaning to read more of her short stories. And this one includes the very famous, the title Pale Horse, Pale Rider, which is one of the few accounts of a writer talking about the 1918 influenza. And making a story about that. Catherine Ann Porter had family members dying from influenza back then. So it's a bit biographical account, and, it's quite topical for the moment, pandemic and all. But the rest of the stories I'm equally interested in. So I'm just started. We have our first check-in on Monday, and I'm really, really looking forward to this collection. So these were the books that I finished, still read, and that I started. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments. Let me know about the books that you are reading, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.